Welcome to this video. This is the highlights video for the 12th round of the candidates tournament in Kranti. And yeah, we're nearing the end of the tournament, and Anand, of course, leading the event. The other guys need to catch up if they want to pose some sort of a threat in the last couple of rounds. Let's look at the games one by one and start with the pursuers of Anand. Aronian and Kramnik. Kramnik is basically out of it already. He's on -1 score. Has basically no chance to catch Anand. He's trailing by 2 points. This is too much. And Aronian is on +1. He has got still a little bit of hope left, but he would need to get in a win somewhere. And this is probably a chance with white. So let's see what happens. We got a Queen's Gambit declined, surprisingly enough, in the purest form, the old-fashioned form, which allows the exchange variation. Generally considered to be slightly more comfortable for white. And, we set this normal moves on the board. See this moves on the board. Now Aronian plays the slightly odd move h3. h3 is a normal idea in the exchange, but it's normally played somewhat later. We, however, transpose to a known structure. Black went for this knight h5 idea to exchange some pieces, and now sets up for queenside castling. Both sides castle queenside in this structure. Yeah, white generally wants to play on the queenside, trying to, like here, get a knight to c5, while black has this very solid setup here. The knight on d6 is especially well placed, covering all kinds of critical squares. Black, in the right moment, wants to exchange the bishop. This could be supported by g6, and long term might do something on the king side. However, after knight c5, g6, intending possibly this move, Aronian played the interesting idea h4, trying to attack with h5. This is actually directed at the center, as white likes to put a knight on e5 without being harassed by a possible move f6. This is an important thing. If black now would do nothing, just to show the point. Yeah, okay, I understand that this doesn't make much sense to move the king. Then white would get the knight to e5, and with h pawns gone, there is never the idea even to play f6, as g6 is dropping. This is an idea of this h5 push to soften up the king side. But Kramnik defended well in this case. He played first bishop back and then g5. Looks a bit strange at first. Aren't you dropping the pawn? Yes, you are. But he had seen that this is not a problem. Aronian took it. And after g4, it turned out that white has a hard time to move the knight anywhere else than h4. It's not very well placed on a square like that. Queen f6 is in fact quite an annoying move. White must be cautious. You cannot even do that, as this drops the queen. Nice little line. Yeah, he decided to put it on h4. Queen f6 and g3. Just putting it, or just, let's say, setting up a solid structure on the king side. Knight to c4, and now he dropped the bishop back. You cannot keep it there forever. Black was intending to get the pawn back anyway, and this was it was not able to white was not able to prevent that. Yeah, black got it back. Rook e1. Yeah, the only idea left really is e4. And here we go, e4 played. Now Kramnik played the move b6, attacking this outpost knight on c5. And it seems that here Aronian really committed a serious mistake, but we'll see that it was not punished. He now played knight a4, and this should land white into big trouble. He really must play e takes d5, which still seems to be quite okay. Here black can try with knight a5 to win a piece, but white retains very serious compensation for that, as especially b4 would attack this knight on the side. It's a bit tricky to show here in the short version of the game. The real problem is that Aronian didn't take. He played just knight a4. And now I'm going to show you what was played in the game. They played bishop a6, knight c5, back, knight a4, bishop a6, knight c5, bishop c8, and game drawn. Okay, the problem is, however, that all those times after we were here, knight a4, Kramnik has the possibility to not play bishop a6, but to play knight b5. And this really leads to very, very substantial trouble for white. It's simply this pawn is attacked, and it's a huge fork on d4. I believe that white is almost losing here. I don't really see a defense. At least you get to very, very uncomfortable positions. I mean, the best is probably something like this: takes, knight a5, an important point, queen back, and then rook d5, which is very important that this h5 rook is suddenly getting back into the game. And here white is just losing d4. You can try to defend like that, for example, but black is just substantially better. It's a pawn and its activity. Note that this knight is terribly placed. So knight b5, I believe, would have won the game for Kramnik. It's I don't know. I don't see anything. I mean, the computer, I mean, also does not. It's quite funny how bad white's position suddenly is with this pawn now dropping. Yeah, I don't know. He probably saw the draw, and this is such a horror tournament for Kramnik that he probably was glad to just have the draw and have the game finished. So maybe he didn't even look for something else. It would have been interesting, though, to see if Aronian would have found a defense. Okay, next game, Topalov-Svidler. Here the roles are pretty clear. Topalov is on -2 and last in the tournament. He cannot qualify anymore, while Svidler is on 50% and he still has the last round game against Anand. So with a win somewhere, he would have a chance, really. An easy to see chance. Win a game, win against Vichy, and qualify. Not easy, but at least something that seems halfway possible. Okay, he played black against Topalov, and we had the Tamanov Sicilian. b5 is a somewhat old move, but a pretty decent one that has been forgotten for a while. Knight c6 is the main move here for white. And now Svidler played the move d takes c6, which I found really surprising, to be honest. This is a very unusual recapture. Normally, black plays queen c6 and tries to get typical play on the c file, which is still open, and on the long diagonal. After the pawn recapture, however, after a4, he felt he needed to play even b4 here. He probably there were some tricks available with taking and even pawn knight sacs here. So e4 was played, b4 was played, knight b1, and now we see that white is always getting a knight to c4, which is just very nice. And this position is just a strategic, I would call it a nightmare almost. It's not like losing, but it's so unattractive. This bishop is always biting on granite. The knight has nowhere to go, no knight d5, while white has this eternal piece on c4 and simply the better structure. We see that here black even was forced to play e5, even weakening d5, and this is just so uncomfortable. Topalov just played all the normal positional moves and got this very nice position. After the capture here on b4, however, here Svidler absolutely was forced to take with the a-pawn. He took with the c-pawn. You take with the a-pawn, you have this idea, and you don't immediately lose material. After this capture, however, there was bishop b6, yeah, and
check.
After the forced capture here, it is almost impossible for black to not lose a5. In the upcoming moves, we see that white was invading on the 5th rank even, and at the end got the a5 pawn. And well, only a couple of moves later, Svidler was forced to resign, as queen d5 is going to decide the game ultimately. Queen trade will simply promote the a-pawn. So yeah, to be honest, somewhat of a strange game, as going rather deliberately for this, in my book, completely awful structure. It's just very strange. I don't really get it, to be honest. It's totally unattractive. You can never ever win the game with black in this type of pawn formation, and you're just worse the whole time. It's just a matter how worse are you? Are you much worse? Are you just slightly worse and suffering? It's tough to tell. I mean, queen c6 on the other hand is a perfectly normal Sicilian middle game. One issue of this line is that black is somewhat trailing in development, but it is not really easy for white to make anything out of that. I had played this line myself sometimes in the 1990s and didn't really have much problems back then with the queen capture. I had looked at this move. I know this. I had looked at this because I thought maybe black manages something to play e5, bishop e6, but you're never coming that far. Even after a4, you get attacked on the queen side so quickly. Okay, next game. By the way, this also means that Svidler is out of it, with now also being back on a minus score. Mamedyarov, Karjakin. Let's look at this game. Both on 50% and need a win to get some kind of hope or have some hope left. Mamedyarov is again playing the f3 line, this sharp line that he used to beat Aronian with. And Karjakin is playing this very sharp counter gambit, so to say. Counter gambit, yeah, it's not a counter gambit. It's let's say it's initiating a counterplay typical for the Blumenfeld and other gambit lines. And white is getting the center, but black is trying to destroy it. And this actually worked out rather nice for black. At first, he managed to break through here in the center and win one of the pawns, and even the second one, which yeah, well, it's one extra pawn for black. But on the other hand, white has the queen aggressively placed near the king, and white will have regrouping ideas to get more pieces on the king. And after a couple of moves, we see that this actually materialized. I believe actually that knight d2 c5, what Karjakin played here, is maybe not the best defense. It seems that a5 is maybe a bit better, as you in this position you can actually use the d7 knight also for defensive purposes. Okay, but this was played, and we see that now white is really going for it here. g6 must be played. h6 is immediately over. So g6, and now after knight g5 and this trade, we see that the dark squares are seriously weak, and white is getting a very, very dangerous attack now. Karjakin took on c3, not just grabbing another pawn, but also intending to take on e5 to get rid of this attacking unit on e5. It's not just a pawn, it's also supporting the attack. Yeah, rook f2 played, giving away, protecting c2 and g2. Knight d4, bishop h6, and knight back to c6. Yeah, black had various ideas here to defend. He could go to c6 and take e5, or go knight e6, which also seems to be okay. In general, I think that white's attack is dangerous, but it shouldn't lead to a direct mate. Black seems to be okay positioned in terms of defense. Knight c6 played, and rook d1, queen takes e5. This was black's idea, getting the e5 pawn. Note that white can always take on f8 in those lines here, but it simply gives up this important attacking piece and does not help white at all. You need to have this piece to attack the bishop on h6. Rook f5 now by Mamedyarov, really shocking move, but quite a strong one. If black now takes, there's rook d5, another sacrifice, and this forces the draw actually. Black can always force a draw with those checks. White can also not play for a win. There's rook d1, queen e5, and then rook d5. Even as a non-sacrifice, just putting it on d5, it will force the draw. So this was a funny way to end the game, but Karjakin played for a win with queen e7, which was very risky. After bishop g5, played f6. Yeah, this needed. This was needed. This move. Details in the long video. It's a super complicated game. And now Mamedyarov took on d5 with this rook. It seems that bishop takes f6 would have led to a very, very dangerous attack. With Karjakin's huge time trouble, I have my doubts that he would have been able to defend this position. It might even be objectively good for white, but I couldn't firmly establish that with limited time. The position is just too complicated. Mamedyarov decided to take on d5 and now on c4. He's 2 pawns down, but still has got attacking chances. After queen e6, bishop b3. And here rook to e8. Quite funny with this counter threat, the mate on e1. If white plays something like that, he's getting mated here. This is also why Mamedyarov pushed h4, securing against the mate, and at the same time intending to capture at some point. Yeah, here probably Karjakin should have taken, but it's probably also leading to a draw, but it's more testing. He played queen e3, after which we got an endgame with black having an extra pawn, but it's not enough to win. White has active rooks, and this bishop is also a strong piece. In fact, he even exchanged it after a couple of moves, but the double rook endgame here is just a draw because white is so active, always attacking the pawn on a5. Black has no way forward after a couple of moves. Oh, this was very quick. Yeah, somewhere around here they agreed to a draw. Yeah, a big fight, and this kind of format where you need to go quickly through a game is really not doing it any justice. It was very complicated, and if you enjoy some tactical fights, you can go to the long video where I'm showing a bit more of that. Also funny to analyze it yourself if you like. Okay, so what is the situation or the result of those 3 games? The results were really good for Anand, to be honest. Topalov winning against Svidler is great, so Svidler is out of the picture, and the other guys are just drawing and not catching up. So let's see what Anand did. He had white against Dmitry Andreikin. Then Andreikin played the Karjakin. This is a line that he sometimes plays. We get to the classical system of the Karjakin. I'm doing this really quickly because the middle game is just too complicated. Queen f3. This is an improvement by Anand on his World Championship match game against Carlsen, where he played knight e4, which after all those trades was pretty much equal. Queen f3 is the more interesting move, getting out of the d file and intending to attack in the center and on the king side. It was up to this point quite a logical game, I believe. Black now played a3, b3, bishop b4, rook e3. And in this position it seems that Andreikin is committing a mistake. He played, but a very, with hindsight, it's easier. He played c5. which is of course a pretty normal move. You need to attack the center at some point. It just seems to be a bit mistimed here. Anand can push now d5, which he did. Takes. Here in fact he had an interesting alternative in knight f5, which is somewhat of a computer move maybe, but it's interesting to look at and seems to be quite good for white. Details are in the long video, but he just recaptured, which is the human move of course. Knight b6 and knight e to d3 to support the d5 pawn. Here is another critical position of the game. White obviously has the idea to play knight to f5, which Karjakin, Andreikin, sorry, prevented with queen c8. Yeah, covering f5, which nevertheless proved to be a mistake, this queen c8 move. It seems that he needed to take on d5. Probably not a move that you love to make, giving up the two knights here. But this was probably what black needed to do. Something like that seems to give black enough play. It's not great, but probably you need to do that. He played this, and now d6 was white's answer. And black now is in big trouble. The pawn is always threatening to push through, and white has various attacking ideas connected with knight h5, for example, which gets rid of this defensive knight, and there's rook g3, and well, it's a big attack. Played rook e8, and now knight h5 played. Rook e6 now, and here we come to a position where now Anand could have decided the game immediately with some precise calculation. He had the choice between basically two wins, and he chose the more complicated one, actually, the longer one. d7 here would have won the game, with the main point being that after a move like queen c7, there is the strong reply e5, rook takes, knight takes, gf, bishop h6, and this is the decisive attack with this mating threat. Queen takes is also possible, but after rook e3, white wins easily. The queen retreats. I'm taking here, and I'm just breaking through very easily. d7 was a pretty clear-cut win, but he played knight takes f6. It's still winning, but it's not so decisive in comparison. d7, queen c7, and queen g4. This was Anand's idea. Rook g3 coming, and it also leads to a winning position, but it's not so clear cut as mentioned. c4, rook g3, g6, and now h6. Yeah, white is threatening to take on g6, and this will also be a decisive attack, but it's not so easy. Let's look. Takes on b3. Yeah, black is threatening this intermediate check. Rook takes, and knight a4. Andreikin is trying everything to get some sort of counterplay against white's king, which is a bit out in the open. Takes now here, and now Anand took the bishop. Yeah, it's a piece, right?
Check.
Queen knight c3 check, king c2, and now b5. This is a very good defensive move. Something like this is just too easy, with white having very good coordination, and black's not even having a serious check here. Queen d5 is coming. b5 is the much stronger move. King b3 going out of the discovered check. And now knight a4. In this position, Anand played the move queen to f3. It turns out, with the help of the computer, you can establish that here bishop d2 was the stronger move. But it's really not like it was all very self-evident. Queen f3 looks completely logical to me, especially with little time. It covers c3. It gets the queen back into the action in the center. Queen to d5 is a move. I mean, and it's also a winning move. It's not like it's a big mistake. Bishop d2 was just a bit simpler.
Check.
Got the check. King back to c2.
Check.
Check again. And now Anand is repeating. Check. Because Check. He wants this exact position to happen after move 40, so that he now has time again to figure out what exactly to do now. Yeah, and here he had a very defined choice. He can play king b3 and claim the draw by threefold repetition, or he can play on with a move. It turned out, after about 15 minutes thought, he decided to play king b3 to take the draw, which is a slight disappointment, as it was such a great game, and he could have won. He could have won. I'm telling you that right away, but it was not a simple win. Not a simple win at all. White has probably two ways to do it. He can go to d2, which after something like that leads to a position where black still has some practical counter chances. And this is, I believe, what Anand also had seen, that this is not totally easy. I mean, white's position is not very well coordinated, and black still has lots of material left to attack. I'm pretty sure in another tournament situation, white would have Vishy would have taken this position to play. It also turns out that if you analyze it with the help of a computer, it turns up a really funny line, rook c4, and this is the most decisive of all, to be honest. Black needs to take, and now white has two ways to win this. Bishop a3 is a more human way to do it, intending bishop to e7. It's not that easy. Queen b6, black can do things. And he also has the move knight g4, which is winning it in a totally spectacular fashion after this. But I refer you to the longer analysis, because the lines, there's so many fun lines here that you really should look at this. So a draw at the end, and this means that there's still little suspense left in the event. If Anand would have won it, it would have been over almost. But so it's not completely decided. I will pull up the tournament table quickly. So that's the standings. Just 2 games left, which basically means that mathematically speaking, the guys on -2 with here 5.5 points are completely out of it. They cannot overtake Anand. They all have the worst tiebreak. It's useless. And the only one, the only really dangerous players left, or the most dangerous player, let's say, is actually Karjakin, because he plays Anand in the next round. If he would beat him, this is the only scenario that is in some way interesting. If he would beat Anand, Karjakin would come close with just half a point trailing him and having the better tiebreak, as he had won against Anand. If then Vishy only draws against Svidler, for instance, and Karjakin wins yet another game, then he would actually tie the score and overtake him. It all comes to what Vishy is doing in the next 2 rounds. If he plays 2 draws, he will qualify very clearly. And not very clearly, it's just like that. If he plays 2 draws, he's through, because he's got the better tiebreak against Aronian. Yeah, and it's just about the game against Karjakin. He's got black though. Karjakin will certainly try everything to win this. Would be interesting to see. Will be interesting to see what kind of opening they will be playing. All in all, I would say that Anand's chances to qualify are, let's say, between 80 and 90%. I would say. If he would have won this game against Andreikin, I would it would be probably on 99%. In this case, he would have yeah, I would only 2 losses could really do the trick. In the last round, Anand is playing with white against Svidler, who does not have any ambition at all left in this. I don't see him losing this game with white, but I don't know if he would lose against Karjakin. This is an entirely new dimension. But Anand has played so consistent in this event. I don't really see it happening. But of course, this will the last really interesting point. This will be the last really interesting point in this event. So let's hope we get a good game on Saturday. Tomorrow, Friday, is a rest day, so it will continue on March 13th. 29th, actually, I'm sorry, this Saturday. Alright, thanks for watching. This has been a bit longer highlights video, but just too much to cover. Thanks for watching.